Hey friends, it's Brittany Valadez here for BravelyDaily.com. Thanks so much for joining me for this interview where I chatted with Kevin Downs. Yes, you guys know him as an actor and producer, and he's actually an executive producer in this new project, The Jesus Music, out right now. All right, before we get into that interview, I just want to ask you guys, of course, a couple of things. If you guys like this video, please make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe. I really do appreciate your subscriptions. It actually does help me continue to make free content like this for you all. And of course, I would love it if you guys join me on social media. Yeah, we can be friends and you can see what I do with my day, which is probably boring, but that's not the point. Follow me on social media, okay? All right, let's get into this chat. Kevin, okay, it's an honor to meet you. I checked out the film and I have to say it took me down memory lane. Yeah, I grew up listening to Christian music. It was basically the first thing I heard coming out of the womb. So yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is it? It's like nostalgic. It's like, oh my goodness, I remember this.
Seriously,
Yeah, it's really great.
seriously, it was totally like that for me.
So let's take it back. You seem to have a lot of friendships with several Christian filmmaking brothers in this industry. Yes, you are friends with the Kendrick brothers and, of course, the Irwin brothers. Where did your connection with the Irwin brothers start?
Yeah, I mean, John and Andy Irwin and I have we co-founded a company called Kingdom Story Company, and this was it's now been almost 3 years. And prior to that, the three of us got together. We did a film about 10 years ago called Mom's Night Out, which was well received, a lot of fun. And we followed that up with a biopic called Woodlawn, which is kind of a football movie set in Birmingham, Alabama. And then we did another one because it worked so well. So then we did I Can Only Imagine together. And we raised the money together and released the movie, and then once that hit, we decided, you know what, let's start a company together. And so we started Kingdom Story Company, and I Still Believe was the first movie through that, and now we've got Jesus Music, and then we've got some others coming. American Underdog being a big one, Christmas Day, about the story of Kurt Warner. And then on the side, just for fun, I act, and so obviously I was in Courageous Legacy, and that's actually where John Irwin and I met, was on the set of Courageous. He was the second unit director, and we hung out in the 110-degree Georgia heat for 3 months. So it was there that we met and developed a friendship, and started working after that.
Now, I did talk to Michael Tait of the Newsboys, and he really liked how the Irwin brothers kept it real. Like, they kept it raw in this film. Now, fans may not know, but of course, Michael Tait is human, and it wasn't always smooth sailing with him and his DC Talk, bandmates. But he liked the fact that he was able to keep things real in the film and that you guys allowed that. That was awesome. Why did you guys decide to keep it authentic versus prettying it up for Christian audiences?
Yeah, I think it's important to be able to share. Once we uncovered kind of the interviews and the stories, and again, we didn't actually ask them to talk about anything. We allowed them to kind of speak what was on their mind and what they believed God wanted to share, and then we kind of figured out the movie from there. But I think it's important that people know that, and they obviously wanted people to know that, we're humans too, and we're flawed, and we have personal struggles. Loved how Toby Mac shared the struggle that he went through when his son died and how that impacted him. Kirk Franklin, same thing, the personal struggles that he had and how that intertwined with his story to be able to create music. But at the end of the day, the common theme we saw is they're all united in one body of Christ, and they have this love for God and this love for Jesus that inspires them to create music. That to me, all of their music is worship music because it lifts up God in a way that glorifies God and praises him.
Now, in the film, I noticed a good portion of the movie was focused on the beginning of the industry. And like I said, I've been a fan all my life. So when I think of beginning, I think of Amy Grant and Michael W. Smith and, even others, which we will talk about later. But y'all took it way, way back and spent quite some time there. Was it to show the story that maybe not a lot of people have heard, including those who, like me, have grown up in the industry?
Yeah, no, I think part of the story was, the origin of this came, last March when the world shut down in the pandemic. We had I Still Believe in theaters, and, the theater shut down. So that was, unfortunate. But Josh Walsh, who's on our team, he just kind of had the idea of, hey, why don't we do a documentary about Christian music? You don't need, big crews to be able to film documentary interviews. So that kind of helped solve that. And so the first phone calls were to Michael W. Smith and Amy Grant. And, they were immediately on board. And that's a testament to the Irwin brothers and how they've gained their trust over the years. They've done music videos for them. And obviously, the movies that we've done together, I can only imagine, I still believe, were well received. And so what we uncovered and what we learned was that they they really wanted to share a lot of their story, and that was incredible. It was impactful, the amount that they shared. And as we started to discover, more artists started to come on board until finally we got to over 100 interviews, over 300 hours of footage. And I think, these artists just really wanted their story told. And so it was an honor, honestly, to be able to make this for them, because we love them so much and we honor them so much for the sacrifices that they go through to be able to create this music.
Now, as we just talked about, a lot of the movie was focused on the beginning of the industry. Now, a good portion of the interviews were done with Greg Laurie, who you guys are also making a biopic about. Is that project still in the works?
Yeah, it still is. It's called The Jesus Revolution. And so we were in pre-production on that movie, about 6 weeks away from starting filming when COVID hit. So we had to shut that down. But we just got kind of the green light again from Lionsgate, and we start filming in January. And that should be out sometime late next year. So we're excited about it. It's a great script. And you see pieces of the story in the Jesus Music documentary, kind of the early beginnings of contemporary Christian music as it happened out in Southern California, and the impact that Chuck Smith and that whole Jesus movement had on people that were just wanting to get saved, because Jesus was the answer and drugs were not the answer during that time period. So we love the story. Obviously it's a part of Jesus Music, and it's also part of the movie Jesus Revolution, which will be out next year.
Okay, I'm going to be honest. A huge part of my childhood was centered around 3 artists that I didn't see in the movie. I felt like you guys went from, DC Talk all the way up to Chris Tomlin, and there was a portion that didn't make the cut. Okay, truthfully, where was +1 Rachel Lampa and Stacie Orrico?
That's hilarious. Oh my goodness. Maybe you have to get the DVD to find out. I don't know. I love the expanse that some of these artists take. And the hard thing about making the movie was there was such good material that we just couldn't include, because you got to cram this down into an hour and 40 minutes. And so some of the stories, you kind of had to pick and choose between them, because from a narrative standpoint, when you put a movie together, they end up being very similar. So, but hats off to John and Andy for really crafting a story and picking the interviews that would be really compelling, and allowing us to learn something and kind of peek inside, kind of behind the curtain of what these men and women go through.
Okay, now there was a lot of artists that were interviewed that didn't make the final film. Okay, does that mean that there's going to be a part 2?
It's quite possible. I think it depends on how, if there's an appetite for it, and if audiences really receive this. We certainly have the footage for it. There are some products that will be released that have additional interviews in them, like a hardcover book, as well as probably the DVD. But we'll see how this weekend goes and how the theatrical release goes. I mean, our goal really is to allow churches to be able to leverage this into encouraging people to come to theaters and groups and fans of Christian music, as some of these artists get back on tour. Some of them are starting tours right now, that they would be inspired to be able to kind of get the origin story and the history of some of their favorite artists before they go back and see them in concert.
Now, how did you choose which artists to interview / which stories to tell? Because there were some greats that I noticed didn't make the cut, like Twyla Paris or Crystal Lewis. And of course, there were some that majorly influenced Christian music that sadly have passed away. And that would be like Rich Mullins and Carmen.
Yeah, it started with Michael and Amy, and it kind of grew from there. I mean, as we continued to interview people, as stories come out, you just kind of start digging for connective tissue to those stories. And so once it got over 100 interviews, 100, I mean, you can't get them all. I mean, unfortunately. So there were some that might have gotten left out. But out of all the interviews, I mean, if you think about it, 300 hours of footage that got whittled down to an hour and 40 minutes, there's a lot that got left out. So, yeah.
Also, fans should stay until after for a special surprise, right?
Fans should definitely stay till after the credits of the film, because the Jesus music is never over until it's over. So yeah, there might be some pieces in there.
Let's talk about what you have coming up next. So, of course, you are both in front and behind the scenes. Now, you, of course, are going to be joining Zach Levi for American Underdog, the Kurt Warner story, as well as Unbreakable Boy, which is a story about a boy with autism. Now, Zachary is also a believer, which some may not know. Can you tell us your roles in both of those films, as well as what it's like working with Zachary?
Yeah, so basically, while our team was kind of doing some of these interviews for the Jesus music, I went off to Oklahoma and set up 2 movies that are narrative features. Both of them star Zachary Levi. And so American Underdog, which will hit theaters December 25th, and then Unbreakable Boy, which will be in theaters March 15th. So I produced both of those films. It's a great, man, both films are great. We just finished both of them, and we're so excited about it. Our audience test scores are off the charts. The Irwin brothers directed American Underdog. I don't know how they do it. They're like Energizer bunnies. And then my friend John Gunn directed Unbreakable Boy. He's done a couple of movies for me in the past that are outstanding. And so, but both of them are great. You're going to love them both. And, if you love Kurt Warner and football and his story, a lot of people know his story, even if you're not a fan of football, because it was just undeniable how he went from stocking supermarket shelves to becoming the Super Bowl MVP, practically overnight, what that story was about. So the movie showcases his early years, struggling to be able to kind of make a fit, and how he met Brenda, his wife, and how their story evolved, and overcoming trial in a time of where it seemed like everything was impossible. But his story is just completely inspiring, and how perfect is it coming out of a pandemic that we have his story coming to theaters on Christmas Day.
Now, with Unbreakable Boy, the film centers around a boy with autism, and there are many parents today who have children with autism. What kind of research did you guys do to make sure that the character was as authentic and real as possible?
Yeah, so Unbreakable Boy is actually based on a true story, based on a book, and so there's real life people that are portrayed in this, and the casting director on that film, Jill Anthony Thomas, did an incredible job casting the film, and little Jacob, who is the central role in it. I mean, he is special beyond belief, and such a talent. I mean, he's such a gifted actor, and so we wanted to be able to portray it real, and that was important for us. And same thing with American Underdog. I mean, the role of Kurt and Brenda's son, Zach, who's actually blind in real life, we decided to cast a blind actor, a little boy, who just steals the show and steals your heart, in my opinion. So it was very important for us, as we made both of these movies, that we try to get as real as possible as far as casting for those particular roles, so that audiences are kind of swept into the story, and they believe it. So yeah, based on true stories, both of them. We got a lot coming, and look, we're thankful that God has put us in this position, John, Andy, myself, and our team, to be able to bring these movies out. And Lionsgate, our partner, totally believes in it. They finance them, they release them, and they believe in the content, and they believe in the audience. And so we're really, really appreciative of that.
All right, friends, what are some interesting things that you took away from this interview? And if you've seen the Jesus Music film, how did you like it? I want to know your authentic, your real thoughts and opinions about the movie. And of course, just put all of that in the comment section below. Okay, if you guys would want to help me out, I appreciate it if you share this video with your friends and give it a thumbs up. And of course, don't forget to subscribe. Until then, I'm Brittany Valadez for BravelyDaily.com. God bless, and I'll see you in the next one.